They send it. Here's the most popular email you can send. It's the one you're scared to send.
Yeah.
A client of mine, she worked with grant writers and had all sorts of critiques, as there should be, about the grant writing industry. And she never said them. And it's like, man, you gotta, and she sent out an email. Basically, like, the whole grant writing industry is bullshit. I help people write grants, but the whole thing is top to bottom insane and, you know, toxic and all this. And that's the email that, of course, she got the most response, because it was the thing that was bubbling up inside of her to say. And I would just say, for anyone listening, if there's something that you're like, I want to rant about this, I promise you, you're not the only one in your scene.
Yes.
The fact that you're feeling that it's about to boil over is the only evidence you need that you're not alone. Other people are feeling it, and a lot of people are just waiting for somebody to be brave enough to say it.
That's the whole thing. And when you are the one to say it, they're going to be, it strikes right to their heart, because they're like, somebody said it. Like, sometimes I tell clients, for their headline on their website, sometimes it's your niching statement, but oftentimes it's your most unpopular belief.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. So, I have this exercise where I ask people to write down what they believe, but the last question is, what's your most unpopular belief? And people will say the most profound things. And and when you read it, you're just like, yes, say it. Nobody's saying it. And that's how it happened accidentally, but that's how I did the headline on my website. I'm just like, a lot of people, the headline on my website is, growing a business while disrupting capitalism can feel like quite the paradox. Let me help you bridge that gap. And I have had people criticize me for being anti-capitalist on the front of my website, and I don't want to work with them. No. So many people love it. And I've gotten so much business out of that, because marketers aren't saying that. Marketers aren't saying fuck capitalism on their stuff. And I don't totally know how, I'm 2 years into my business. I don't know how this is going to pan out in terms of like how to bring this message into fruition. But I bought the anticapitalistmarketer.com and anti-capitalism, or marketing for whatever it is. I bought some and I don't know how it's going to work, and I don't totally know how to talk about it, but I know it's controversial. I know it's going to push some buttons and let the conversation begin. Like, that's your most unpopular belief is the thing you should lead with.
So now, unpopular to whom, though? To your clients or to your colleagues?
To the people in your life, I guess. Like, I don't think either clients or colleagues, because it's like, maybe to your colleagues.
That's what I was
probably
thinking.
To your colleagues. Yeah. I have to think about that some more, but it's not your clients, because sometimes you can write this statement before you even have a client. It's like something that you just know, and you know that you're just going against the grain in some way.
I think, I just made a note here. So unpopular to your industry and colleagues or your scene.
Yes, to your scene. Yeah.
You're a part of a certain scene. And then you say, wait a second, there's the elephant in the room. Why is nobody talking about this? This is insane. And somebody says the thing that it's the emperor's new clothes. That kind of stuff. I think why it hits is because everybody's thinking it. It's bugging everybody. They're starting to boil over about it. And when somebody finally says it, it's like releasing pressure that's been building up and up. And it's like, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying it. And this is interesting too, because here's my pro tip on homepages, sales letters. This is the most important perceptual shift I think people can get, because people think, purpose of my homepage and sales page is to get people to keep reading. It's to kind of seduce people in. And I say, no, it's actually exactly the opposite of that. What's the purpose of the headline on your homepage or a sales letter? It's to eliminate almost everybody.
Yes.
Like, you're not trying to, and what I just said is itself sort of an incarnation of something that I don't know if my colleagues it wouldn't be popular in the scene. And it's then, what's the purpose of the subheadline? To eliminate almost everybody else. And the opening paragraph, to keep eliminating. The whole purpose of a homepage or a sales letter is that by the end of reading it, the only people left standing are the people who are just a hell yes to what you're doing.
They're super fans. You want super fans only.
Yeah, because
And I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you go tepid on it and you go lukewarm, well, you get a lot of people who get to the end because there's nothing in their way. So just, okay, I keep reading. And then they become clients and they're just, they're not great clients. They don't rave about you. They don't get amazing results from you because it's not completely a fit. So
and they don't light you up. They don't light you up because so much, if you're in a client-based business, 90% of your business is having conversations with people. So like, who do you want to have conversations with? Who are you going to beeline to at a house party? Like, those are who you want as your clients. Who lights you up? Who is gonna, like, this conversation right here? This is an easy conversation. You and I see eye to eye. We have a lot in common. This is a fun conversation. These are the kinds of people you want to work with. Like, you want people who share your values, really.
Totally. And it's what's also interesting. I put a link in the chat there's a blog post I wrote called, if you go to marketingforhippies.com/oxymoronic, it's this idea of oxymoronic business name, where you're combining two things that normally don't get combined. So when you make an unpopular statement, when you have an oxymoron, like the anticapitalistmarketer.com, well, anti-capitalism and marketing normally don't go together. So it's a contusion to the mind. People kind of, what? They have to, like, what? Say more? I don't understand how those things fit together. And the beautiful thing about it, again, whether it's a controversial statement or something where things don't fit together, people can talk about it. Oh, they remember it. It has a point of view in it. People want to talk about it. It makes you unique. Because if it's like, hey, oh my God, the most amazing thing happened today. I was talking to this person, their life coach, and you know what their belief is? That my life can be better. Amazing. And that never happened. That's never been a conversation in the history of the world. But if somebody says, oh my God, I've got this life coach and his take is, or a relationship coach, and she said this thing to me that just flattened me. She was like, if you want a really authentic relationship, you have to be willing to risk the whole relationship in every single moment. And I was, which was something a client of mine said. So it's just like, oh, wow, I'd never thought that thought before. Yeah.
But it's true. That's another thing. If you speak the truth, people will hear it and they'll know it's true,
Right. And if you speak what's popular, it's I mean, this is one of the one day I'll write an essay. I'll probably put it in as next edition of my point of view marketing book. But is this idea that popularity equals truth is a very popular idea and a very untrue idea. Just because it's popular, just because everyone believes it, just because everyone's towing that line, it's actually what it really is better evidence of that idea works for the people in power. And that's why it's popular.
Yes.
Because it works for them. And so it's also very good to be wary of. This is one of the places where Rebecca was saying about the what's your most unpopular belief? What's this elephant in the room? Because there's something. Have you seen the new Matrix movie, by the way?
No.
Oh man, it's great. I really liked it. Afterwards, I was like, I don't know, but there's this scene in it where, I can't say it without spoiling the movie, but there's a scene where they talk about basically the power of the Matrix or the system, however you want to say it, to co-opt things. It'll take your best and brightest ideas and it will turn them into something banal, just kitsch, and hidden in plain sight. You can take radical feminism and then it becomes, let's just make sure that 50% of the CEOs are women. Like, that's it? Of the corporation destroying the planet? Yeah. This is our radical dream? So there's nothing that it won't savage and co-opt and twist to its purposes. There's no radical. They can take the anti-capitalist thing and turn it into a Nike commercial, which they did. So there's nothing precious to those in power. People look at the people in power, and I think their greatest defense is people look at them and they say, they wouldn't do that.
Right.
Yes. No. You wouldn't do that.
Right.
They're
right.
psychopaths. They would absolutely do that. But how could they sleep at night like babies?
Yeah, and when you reach a certain level of income, it actually changes your brain. When you reach a certain level of power, it changes your neurochemistry.
Yeah, if
So
you're on,
maybe there was a time they were different, but they're other people now.
yeah, it's yeah, you're on the receiving end of that much privilege, and all of a sudden you're born on third base and you think you hit a triple, as they say. So you so this is the thing that I would invite everyone to consider. If you have a belief and it's incredibly popular and everybody's on board with it, it's time to just question it. Because the fact that the mainstream media has adopted it may be telling us something, that something important has been left out of it. You know, you see something that used to be a radical slogan and now the news is using it. It's like, it's often good to go, you know, the etymology of the word radical, roots.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, this festival used to be radical, but now it's suddenly everywhere. It used to be a threat to the system. Now it's corporately sponsored. Is it possible that something got left out along the way? That maybe the original organizers might be horrified to see the way it's gone. And then you can bring something radical back. And
Mm.
it's the radical things that get attention, the things that are genuinely um, outside of the norm and the mainstream of what we see every day, of this corporately owned, what, 6 companies own all the news media, and they're all owned by Vanguard and BlackRock anyways. Um, and you think they're going to let stuff be on the news that's a genuine threat? So but then it's frightening because these are dangerous ideas now we're talking about. You might have an idea, and it's like, if I say this, I could get canceled, it could be dangerous to me. And I have no advice on this. This is something every individual, I think, has to suss out themselves and how willing they are to say these things. But if we don't say them, it might be that the danger to the world is greater than the danger to us would be.
Yes. I mean, Martin Luther King would talk about how the white moderate was more concerned with order than justice.
Mm.
And having justice means 9 times out of 10 creating disorder.
Yes, and he also said he was so disappointed in the white moderate because it's the Phil Oakes line. Phil Oakes was a folk singer, and he has a song called "Love Me, I'm a Liberal," and he says the liberal is somebody who's 10 degrees to the left of center in good times and 10 degrees to the right when it affects them.
Right.
And so, because they want to be in the middle, they don't want to rock the boat. This
Right.
is the trouble of the liberal, of course, is that, yeah, the order of the system fundamentally works for them, gives them privileges. Right. So who wants to rock the boat? Not them. And so they don't.
Right. Yeah. I also feel like when you talk about mainstream, if your beliefs are really in line with the mainstream, it's time to question your beliefs. I think now that we're living in this time that's so polarized, I feel like the next question is if your beliefs are really aligned with the subculture that you're in or the faction that you're in. Like, for instance, I'm a hardcore lefty. It's no secret. But when I find myself feeling really combative at a time when compassion might be more helpful, even for some douchebag who's being misogynist or whatever it is, like, even in that scenario, if I'm finding myself towing the party line and being like, bullet point list of how you should feel and act right now, I found myself being like, am I even a critical thinker anymore? Because I'm finding myself, I'm spending so much time on Instagram that I'm finding myself letting the Instagram activists tell me how to think and feel. And I consider myself, a very independent thinker. And here I am, like, afraid,
right,
to push. I'm not afraid to push buttons on the mainstream level or on the right or on the, I'm fine pushing buttons there, but can I push buttons with my brethren, with my colleagues, yeah,
and all of us have to figure out where we're willing to push, and when is it too expensive and when isn't it, and that's a very hard call to make, because it does have hard. We speak out, it has consequences. We don't speak out, it has consequences. So we just have to decide which consequences we're willing to live with. But I would say I think this is an interesting thing, an important thing to underline. What you just said is, so because you lift up, I just love this. Like, what's your most unpopular opinion? What's your most kind of controversial thing in your scene? It's so easy for that to become the new religion. It's so easy for them to become fundamentalist about that. But it just seems like everything is medicinal in some way. Every idea is medicinal at a certain time. And so, for example, there's certain times where tough love is what's needed. And there's certain times where some real gentle love is needed. There's times where adversity is medicinal. And there's times where just comfort is medicinal. And it's very easy to ossify around something. You know, some people would make the case that the left, the left and the right, if the parties is tricky, and of course they're both completely corporately owned at this point, and what are you going to do?
Right, yeah.
But the left has more of this compassion and is willing to challenge the tyranny at the top, and the conservative side, more conservative meaning it order and structure, doesn't want to change things quite as quickly. And of course, you can get tyranny on both sides. I heard somebody said, when you look at the far left and the far right, they're not opposites, they're opposames. Because they both turn into authoritarian governments and concentration camps. And you can say, no, don't you see fascism is different than communism? Explain it to somebody in the gulags. Help them understand the fine difference of their experience.
Well, it's the extreme left goes around and the extreme right goes around, and they meet. And we're seeing that a lot during this COVID crisis, and a lot's arising around that, which we don't have to talk about. But it's a lot of people who you never thought. Like, I'm thinking right now, I will call it out, JP Sears, who is that ultra spiritual guy who is so funny and cool. And he has really circled around, and he's super right-wing now. And it's like, you think it's a linear thing where he went from way one side to another, but it's not linear. It's cyclical, and it meets right in the middle.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if we start talking about COVID and our opinions about COVID, we'll definitely get a bigger crowd. People will stick around. What exactly does Rebecca Van Dam think? What does Tad?
What does Tad think? I think we all want to know what Tad thinks.
I'm sure. Everyone